Mobile hunters, if you're interested in upping your mobile game, then head to tetherednation.com and check out their saddle gear. There are a few things you can actually buy that will help you become a better deer hunter or give you the freedom to hunt any tree or any situation. This is the reason why I started saddle hunting in the first place and why I use Tethered's gear. I can honestly say that Tethered's saddle gear has changed how I hunt for the better. Big tree, little tree, from the ground, it doesn't matter. I'm untethered by my gear to hunt the best setup for the situation, instead of hunting for a tree that my gear can use. My current core setup consists of the Phantom saddle, tethered one sticks, and the Predator platform, along with an assortment of their accessories. So if you want to up your mobile game, head over to tetherednation.com. If you're like me, you spend lots of time poring over maps, looking at weather data, all in an effort to help predict when and where my best times to hunt will be. It'd be nice if there was a reliable source with all this information in one place. Enter the Spartan Forge app. Unlike some other predictive apps on the market, Spartan Forge was created from military combat intelligence experience tailored for hunters, and stands at the nexus of machine learning and white-tailed deer hunting. No more man-made algorithms. This is a predictive model based on real GPS-collared deer data, historical and predictive weather, and the next level of mapping imagery, all at my fingertips. I've been using the iOS app this season, and it has replaced all my other mapping tools. Visit SpartanForge.ai and sign up today, or head to your iOS or Android app store. Use the promo code TRUTH to save some money and download it today. Welcome to the Truth from a Stand Deer Hunting Podcast, brought to you by Skull Brew Coffee Company. I'm your host, Clint Campbell, and you're listening to episode number 290. Today, I'm joined by my good buddy, Johnny Utah, and we are talking epic travel hunts and more, so stay tuned. All right. What is up, everyone? Happy Wednesday to you. Hope you are doing well. Hope you are feeling fine. Now we got some summer heat here. We got some heat here the past couple of days, and it actually feels like summer, which, look, I'm okay with. I'm getting ready to go on vacation here over the 4th of July. I'm going to do a little lake living, maybe a little malted beverage consumption during that course of time. Maybe a little boating, however, not with malt beverage consumption. That would be poor form. We don't want to get into that business. I'm going to shut my door here because I'm in my office and the vacuum is running. Nothing too crazy this past week. What I did do is wrap up getting all of my gear. I will say I'm probably 98% done getting all my gear for the Idaho hunt. So, I ended up picking up my tent last week. I had like 3 big ticket items that I needed to get yet, which was a frame pack, and then I needed to get a good tent, and then I also needed to get a good sleeping bag, because the one I was using in the trailer for whitetail hunting, I mean, it's okay. It's just big and bulky. It does the trick for that, but I've got a heated enclosed kind of space. So what I ended up getting, I'll just give you the rundown of it, and maybe at some point I'll make a video of it and kind of go through the gear. But I ended up getting an EXO pack, K3 frame, and I think I got the 4800 bag on that, which I talked to the guys at EXO. They're super awesome. I don't work with them in any capacity. They were just super good dudes, and spent some time on the phone with me just to make sure I was getting the right stuff. But went with that bag specifically because it is a earlier season hunt, and so I shouldn't have as big and bulky a clothing to take along with me, and so I should be able to get by with the 4800. If not, they told me they would just send the bag back and we can swap it out. I just need to pay the difference for the bigger bag, and they'll take care of me. So that was cool. That actually should be coming in the mail. I'm recording this on Sunday, so it should be here today. And what I'll do is I'll just kind of get all my gear, pack everything into that pack, make sure everything I need to take with me is going to fit. And then I ended up getting a Black Agnes. I think it's Black Agnes, Big Agnes tent, a 2-person copper spur, I think HVUL2, I think is what it's technically called. It's the same one my buddy Chad Sylvester ran in Idaho last year. They actually did a gear gadget video on their YouTube channel where he talked about it. So if you want to check that tent out and some of the specs and stuff like that, he did a good job kind of detailing it there. But I try to go with gear that buddies of mine have used and had success with. I like doing the research on my own, but I always find like the best research I can get is just guys that I know specifically that have actually used the gear and given me an honest opinion about their experiences with that gear. Now, where the sleeping bag came into play, that was really kind of a well. First off, I've never looked at good sleeping bags, just to be completely transparent and honest. Every sleeping bag I've probably ever owned in my life was either like bought at Walmart or a hand-me-down, probably would be the best way to categorize them. And they've always worked fine for what I've done. The When I was shocked as I was perusing around trying to find a decent sleeping bag as to how expensive they are. Like I kind of, I guess, anecdotally understood that the mountaineering bags that you're going to use to climb Everest or whatever, like it seems plausible that they would be really expensive, right? Because it's, you're in some pretty extreme conditions. But what I did not realize was that like a really, really good backpacking sleeping bag, like just like a 0-degree bag or a 15-degree bag or whatever it is that you're getting, that is just like you're looking for something that compresses down because you're trying to take up as little room as possible in your pack and as light as possible because you don't want to be carrying that thing around weighing 5 pounds. That they were like, I was seeing bags for like $700+ and I was like, you got to be crazy, man. I was like, and so I had to really quickly calibrate what I thought I was going to have to spend on a good bag that was going to be lightweight and not take up a ton of room. And I didn't spend $700. I set myself a mark of like, I will be willing to spend $200 on a good, decent, I'm not even say good, a decent sleeping bag that doesn't weigh a lot, that has a good, weight to warmth ratio, that will pack relatively small, that I'll be able to use for multiple seasons. That way it's like, it's kind of, I'm a cry once, buy once kind of guy. And so my buddy Tom ended up having like an email from a company that was running a sale, and I was able to get a pretty decent bag. I think the price on it was like $190 or whatever, which fit within the parameters that I set. And he had like a 20% off thing, promo code. So I ended up using that and getting a little bit of money off. And at the end of the day, I ended up spending like $150 on a bag, which I felt good about because it was a little cheaper than what I thought I was gonna have to spend. It's a decent bag. I think it's a Climate. I don't even know how you pronounce the name. So with that, I kind of got all the big ticket items that I'm going to be taking with me. Then one other thing that actually just came in recently that I was really stoked about was my buddies over at Sitka sent me some stuff to check out. And they, if you don't know, like they have a bunch of their ambient stuff that just came out, which is killer. But they actually sent me the ambient jacket, and this stuff is available on their site right now. And this will be going into my kit immediately. It's kind of like it's got a little bit of like a sweet like insulating liner on the inside, and it's a really kind of like thin, lightweight Primaloft jacket. And so that will be perfect to kind of take with me, on, cooler mornings, I guess would be one way to say it. It'll be between that and my puffy that I would use depending on what the temperatures are going to be, if we're sitting somewhere glass in or how much we're going to be moving or whatever. But if you haven't checked out the stuff that they've recently come out with, the ambient stuff, it looks really killer. And then they've got a handful of things that are going to be coming out this summer. So you're going to want to kind of keep your eyes peeled for that as you get ready to kind of gear up for your hunting season. So with that, I have one last piece of housekeeping to do before we jump into the show, and you're not going to want to miss this. I'm just going to kind of read it down because I don't want to get anything wrong, because there's a lot of kind of specifics here. But my buddies over at Exodus we've been kind of talking about a new product, and I've been teasing that they have something new that was coming out that I couldn't make mention of on the podcast yet. They've released a bunch of social media stuff. You guys probably saw it. They are making some kick-ass arrows, and so I'd be lying, and you'd probably be lying to yourself if you said you were never really confused or felt uncertain when you were shooting your bow, making sure that you were kind of shooting the very best arrows that you possibly could for your setup. We've all been there and struggled with tuning bows and so forth. So that's really was the genesis for why Exodus developed and sourced, the most precise archery components that you could possibly find to tailor an arrow specifically for, mine and your hunting adventures that we're going to have coming up. We do so much work. We shouldn't be kind of taking a flyer on the arrow that we're sending down range after we put all that work in to try to get that close to an animal. So here's what they actually demanded before they brought the Exodus MMT to market. They demanded arrows to fly with deadly accurate precision. High grade components and a technology creates the most accurate hunting arrow, period. Not only do you get arrows built with the same jig for exact consistency, all shafts and components are carefully sorted to build tolerances at plus or minus 2 grains per dozen. They demanded arrows to maximize momentum efficiency. As bow hunters, the need for penetration is second only to a well-placed shot. Momentum is the driving factor for penetration. Maximize momentum, maximize penetration. They demanded an arrow that had deadly long-range accuracy. Say goodbye to the giant pin gaps or long and spread out sight tapes. They demanded an arrow that eliminated situational variables. With proprietary fletching, arrow recovery, and components, wind speeds up to 35 miles per hour became negligible at distances up to 100 yards, which is absolutely bonkers. So the X's MMT is simply built different. Precision meets strength. The X's MMT features a patent and proprietary 4K outer layer weave at a 1-to-1 ratio for increased torsion strength and durability while eliminating weave gaps. This offers balanced strength from all sides of the shaft and identical shaft diameters, meaning unmatched accuracy and performance. Built from the shaft's first dynamic bend, identifying the exact spine index on every arrow ensures superior consistency, accuracy, and efficiency downrange, allowing for precision tuning 4 times faster, so no more struggling to tune. The MMT carbon inner tube strengthens and stiffens the front end of the arrow, allowing unmatched arrow recovery, reduce energy loss by forcing the shaft into equilibrium at a faster rate, and providing noticeable, more downrange efficiency. The manufacturing process uses ceramic mandrels. This allows for slower, more consistent cooling, curing for better material integrity, and creates uniform shaft diameters with no taper. It's fletched with an airfoil technology, so this is stuff coming from the aerospace technology meets wilderness, essentially. The fletchings on the X's MMT creates a quieter flight, faster spin rate, tighter flight profile, less crosswind effect for more efficient downrange arrow. So head over to the Exodus website, that's exodusoutdoorgear.com, and check out all the details of the Exodus MMT and build your own arrows in their 3D builder. Arrows start at $119.50 for a half dozen and $239 for a dozen. So be sure to check that out. I actually got some of those in the mail this past week and started flinging those downrange and giving them a check. And I'm just gonna be honest with you, they're pretty badass, but don't take my word for it. You should get on the site and check it out and read up on it. Check out all their content, pay attention to their YouTube channel. They're going to be dropping a ton of stuff to kind of explain a bunch of the things that we talked about or that I just kind of mentioned during the course of this upfront. So with that, we're going to go ahead and jump into today's show. I have my good buddy, Mr. Johnny Utah Mulligan. You know, he's a multiple time offender on this show. John and I talk pretty often, just, you know, via text and stuff like that. But he hadn't been on the show, I think, since I want to say like December. He was just getting ready to leave for his Canada hunt, and he had just killed his Texas buck. And if you remember, the Cliff Notes version, really quick, is that he killed a hammer in Iowa during archery season. Then he went to Texas, killed an absolute stud in Texas. And then he was getting ready to go to Canada for a whitetail hunt. And then I'll just let the podcast play out. But he had a season for the ages. I'm not sure how you top it. We talk a little bit about that and just about, you know, his experience in Canada and what all that kind of entailed. And I'll do a little foreshadowing. You know, he did managed to wrap a tag around a dream species of his. So without further ado, we're going to go ahead and just jump into today's show. And as always, I want to thank you all for listening. All right, folks, welcome back to another episode of the Truth from the Stand Deer Hunting Podcast. And today, you're going to be disappointed, dude. I failed to come up with like a brand new nickname. Like for some reason, the Kentucky Rattler is the one that I still like. That's my go-to. I feel like that's the best. I feel like that's the best one. I was going to try to do something with like Johnny breast and thighs Mulligan, you know, since you're getting all swole now and shit, but
if I ever go back to some Eastern Kentucky like low budget wrestling, that will be my stage name. I'll be the Rattler.
The Rattler, Johnny Utah Rattler, hailing from Eastern Kentucky, Eastern by God Kentucky. You have to have like a tambourine. Like you got to come out in like overalls, almost like Hacksaw Jim Dugan style. You know what I mean? But just
right.
Overalls,
oh yeah.
but with like a tambourine. That way, when they say Rattler, you gotta like let it rattle.
Yeah. Oh, I'm with it. Yeah.
You know, and
it's all about the theatrics of it all. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And your walkout song is Ram Jam Black Betty.
Yeah. That's a good one. That is a good one. That's actually on my playlist right now.
Hell yeah! Don't lie, dude. You were just rocking that before we hopped on here. I think I heard it in the
Oh,
background.
mhm.
Oh man! So, dude, we haven't. I mean, we talk, often enough, like via text and quick phone calls and shit like that.
Yeah.
Um, but we hadn't caught up on a podcast. I was looking back, and we were just talking about before we started recording, like December sometime. We talked about you getting ready to leave for your Canada hunt. You were headed to
Uh-huh.
Saskatchewan, moose,
Yeah.
whitetails, and then yeah. So we got all kinds of shit to catch up on, man. So
Yeah.
we got your dad's race coming up here, I think, in a couple weeks, right? And if I'm not mistaken, that's happening here. Is it
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
middle of June, toward the end of June, right?
July 8th.
Okay, it was July. All right,
Mhm.
nice. Was it June last year or was it July last year?
It was July last year
Was
because
it?
it was right in between the Utah snowbird tack and Big Sky tack. It fell right in between those.
Okay, nice. You have everything coming together
Yep.
for that?
Yeah, yeah. We actually had one last partner that came on board today, which was really nice, and it allowed us to hit our goal. Um, you know how a lot of these memorial race things go. Like the first race was only 6 months after my dad's passing, so there was still a lot of heartstrings, played in, and a lot of people wanted to participate. Now it's like he's been dead 18 months, and people are like, psh, you know what I mean? It's old news, you know what I mean?
Right,
So
right.
but the nice thing about it was the race had such a big turnout that other companies who didn't even know my dad, and really don't even know that much about dirt racing, now they just see it as, well, this is a business opportunity for marketing. You know what I mean? Like there's that
Right.
going to be that big of a turnout. I want my logo splashed up on the banner and the advertisement of stuff. So that's really nice. We've had a couple of new companies that have come on board that, like I said, they didn't know my dad, or there's no ties to the family in that regard. So that's pretty cool.
Nice, man. Yeah. That's awesome, man. You get to do a little dirt track, and your one buddy was killing it. I was watching your IG
Mhm.
stories. He was up for
Yeah,
the millie, wasn't he?
he was. He was up for the million, man. And that's the finicky thing about racing is there's so many things that can go wrong. I mean, the driver can do everything right, the car can be perfect, but what if your front right tire was made Friday at 5 o'clock, and it just, you know what I mean? It blows out for no reason, and you crash in the wall, and that's just the end of it. But fortunately, he didn't really crash per se. They missed the setup just a little bit, and that level of racing, to put it in terms of what we know really well and what the more of the listeners are going to understand, it is a 150-yard arrow shot, and you're talking a half inch off the bullseye. Bullseye's the million, a half inch, no money. But you
Yeah.
were a half inch away at 200 yards. And that's the level of competition.
Yeah.
When I was racing, a lot of times it was, man, you got to try to be a tenth of a second faster than somebody on their level of racing. I need to be 100th of a second faster. And
Right.
it's a whole nother level. It's crazy. It's crazy what the sport has gotten into. And I crawled underneath one of his cars recently, and it would have been no different than if I was looking at the guts of a damn rocket ship or something. Like I didn't know what the hell I was even looking at anymore. It's changed so much.
Right. Yeah.
So, but
Speaking
it's
of,
cool. Yep.
no, I was just gonna say. What were we gonna say?
No, I was just saying it's just cool to me. One, yeah, he's my buddy, and it is something I kind of used to do. But in the same token, I just love people that fucking excel. You know what I mean? Like God has given him a talent
Hmm.
to do that, and whether it's the number one athlete in a pitcher in the majors, or Steph Curry, or these people that they just fucking bring it on this level that is not normal. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? They are genetically gifted, and they put in the work, you know what I mean, to reap the rewards. And it's fun just to watch people crush. So
Yeah.
it's neat. It's neat for me to be a fan and a buddy of his.
Yeah. No, for sure, man. It's like I remember when I was playing, back in the day. And
Yeah, yeah.
like I said, like
Great example with music. You saw that shit.
yeah, like the band I was in, like we were good, signed, had a record deal and stuff like that. And then I went after that band dissolved. I left and we kind of parted ways. And then I got a call from a band that that had won a Grammy and had sold several million records and asked me to come in and play. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I was
Yeah.
because we were kind of friends and we all knew each other and we had played with them before and stuff like that. And they had a need at guitar player, that some stuff went down with their guitar player, and so they had a new record that was coming out and they asked me to come in and do some rehearsals with them and just kind of see if we meshed or whatever. So I did, and
Uh-huh.
even though the band I was in was good, and we were doing stuff and legit and pro and all that type of stuff with a record deal and whatever, there was like a
Mhm.
different level of getting in a room with guys that were playing 320 nights a year for like the past 6 years together and had won a Grammy and sold a couple million records. It's like I walked into
Yeah.
that room and it was like all of a sudden it was like, oh, this is what that next level is that we were trying to get to. This is where they're at.
Right.
Why don't you come up and join us? You know what I mean? Like it was
It,
like one of those types of things.
isn't that the coolest thing to get to witness? Like I said, high performing, people that are functioning just on a different level. It's so cool to see. I know I'm actually very sure that you and I have had this conversation before. One day I was listening to a podcast, one of those really famous big podcast
Mm-hmm.
guys on
Yep.
Spotify now,
Yep.
and I was listening to his podcast, and he had a guest on there that was they collected butterflies or some shit, and Kelly's like, you are all into this podcast. Like, it must be like either a hunter or like a fighter or like a bodybuilder or, something like that. And I'm like, no, it's like a bug dork. But this guy is so damn passionate and he's like the number one bug dork. So, like, I'm eating it up. You know what I mean? So,
Yep.
yeah, I get what you're saying. And I could only imagine what it would be like to like sit down with somebody who's, like you said, Grammy winners, and you're going, holy shit.
Well,
They're on a whole nother level.
yeah, the thing that blew me away more so than anything was like they're all really good players, but their singer, like when he came in and we started singing, because I had to learn like a handful of songs from like their two prior records, and they had a couple hits that had
Mm-hmm.
like some number one singles and stuff like that, and then I had to learn like a handful of like the new songs from the new upcoming record. And
Right.
I walked in and we started with like some of the more familiar stuff like their hits or whatever. Um,
Yeah.
and he sounded like the record at rehearsal,
Isn't
like
that crazy?
just like
No auto tune or nothing.
just doesn't miss a note, doesn't miss a cue, like nothing. And we got done and they were actually surprised because they were like, dude, we played through like 4 or 5 songs straight. And they were like, dude, we can't
Mm-hmm.
believe you came in like a pro and like nailed all these songs and stuff. And, they were just appreciative that I showed up with my shit together, essentially. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
Because they get all types. You'd think like a band like that, they would get like the creme de la creme, but they still get guys who come in unprepared, just like anything else,
Yeah.
And,
Oh, yeah. Yeah. We see it.
and the singer turns to me and he's like, hey man, he's like, sorry. He's like, I'm a little rough. He's like, I haven't sang in probably 3 months since I got done doing the record. Cause my voice was just toast after recording for however many months,
Uh-huh.
he was in LA. And I'm like, dude, you sounded like the record. I was like, I don't know what you're
Yeah.
talking about. I was like, that was like perfect from where I was sitting. But
Yeah. It's just whole nother level, man. It's pretty cool.
yeah,
Pretty
for
cool
sure.
to see.
Speaking of a whole nother level, dude. So like I was saying, the last time we had a chance to talk, you were on your way to Saskatchewan to hunt moose and whitetails. And if people out there if they don't know already, there's some really kick-ass videos on the Primal Divide YouTube channel that you can see all the deets of what went down. But how was that experience, dude? That was kind of wild. Just like, aside from like the hunts themselves, but just like the environment you in was kind of bananas.
Yeah. Well, it kind of goes back to like when a lot of us we would watch some of the hunting shows and the monster bucks and they would go to Saskatchewan and I'm like, wow, like to me, I always saw Saskatchewan like that could have been shit, I don't know, they were hunting in Russia. You know what I mean? Like
Exactly, yeah.
To me, growing up in Kentucky, Saskatchewan might as well have been in Russia or someplace far away. And I just never thought that would be someplace I would ever get to go. But opportunity presented itself from a friend of mine that was actually going up there, somebody in your neck of the woods out in PA, my friend Leslie. So she had a hunt booked with this guy, and it first started out that I was just going to go and photo film for her. And she's like, there might be a chance you could get a tag. So that's how the hunt came together. And I took my bow out there, and the idea was I was going to go out there and try to shoot a nice representation of the area whitetail, right? And then there was the possibility of, maybe if you get that tag filled and if we can find or spot a moose, maybe we can get a second tag, a moose tag. And I'm like, okay, I don't even really want to think about that. I'm going after a whitetail. That's all I'm going after. Well, because it was kind of her bag, I made sure that she killed first. You know what I mean? Right. I wasn't going to steal any thunder. So she shoots a whitetail day one. I shoot a whitetail at the end of day two. Well, we're not flying out for like 5 days, and it's negative 33 degrees. So it's not like you can go outside and make snow angels.
Right.
Like, I'm like, well, what are we going to do? I'm like, I don't want to just sit in this hotel all day. So we asked the outfitter if there was a possibility of getting that second tag, and I was able to secure a moose tag. And he's like, look, man, I'm telling you, like, we don't have a lot of moose here. But if you want to buy the tag and roll the dice, I'm like, I might as well. What else am I going to do for 5 days? So we go into this spot where we think there is going to be some moose. And we actually saw some moose tracks early that morning in the area. So it's the best sign I've had. You know what I mean?
Right.
I'm not an experienced moose tracker. So I'm like, oh, there's a moose, like, hoof, like on the ground. That's a good enough place for me to start. So it's so crazy, dude. I am that guy. I don't forget my shit. You know what I mean? Like, I'm really like anal about make sure I got my binos, I got my backpack, I got my broadheads. I don't do that type stuff typically. But this morning I overslept and I'm scrambling. Leslie's like banging on my hotel room door, and she's like yelling, like, John, wake the fuck up. Because I guess apparently my alarm's just been blaring for 30 minutes, waking up everybody. And I was on cruise control. Must have been the whiskey from that night before. But so anyways, I'm scrambling. I'm all flustered, and I'm trying to get my stuff together in like 5 minutes, like no shower, nothing, just get dressed and run out the door. So the guy drops us off, and the way this setup is he drives us in part of the way, drops us off, and then we hoof it the rest of the way. And because you're already in full gear. There is no getting dressed at the base of the tree stand. It's negative 33. You are layered up already at this point. So we get out of the truck, and the first thing I do is I put my coat on, and then I put my bino harness on over top of it. Well, I don't have a bino harness, which means I don't have a rangefinder. That also means my release is actually clipped on to my bino harness. I'm essentially SOL with an archery, with archery equipment. So I look at him and I was like, dude, this is what happened. He's like, shit. He's like, okay, just go ahead and haul ass, get set up in the blind, get your tripods, get the heater going, get camera equipment set up. I'm going to run back to the hotel. I'm going to go into your room, grab your bino harness, and then I'll text you, and you can meet me up here at the edge of the forest, Mm-hmm. So that's what we do. I go meet him. I get back to the blind. I'm settled in. And now, like, I'm trying to go through that mental thing. Like, I fucked up. Don't let it ruin your day. You got 12 hours to sit here in this blind. You know what I mean? Like, game on, reset, refocus. So about 30 minutes goes by, and I'm still like kicking myself, like, you dumbass. I can't believe you forgot that. You probably just ruined the morning hunt, all that running through the woods, right? And, and that's the type of forest where it's so cold that, like, you can hear a mouse fart, know?
Yeah.
So he calls my phone. Rule number one, when somebody's hunting, you don't call them, you text them, if anything, right? But He calls my phone, it's on vibrate, of course, but it's vibrating. And I see that it's the outfitter. And I'm like, the hell's he calling me for? So I'm like, doing the hello,
Right.
whispering. And
Right.
he goes, pack your fucking shit and meet me at the fucking edge of the forest right fucking now. And I'm like, oh, what has just happened? You know what I mean? I
Right.
had no idea. I didn't know if he was in an accident or there was some kind of fatality at this point. And I was like, why? What's going on? He goes, I just spotted a big fucking moose. You better get your shit. So that's all I need to hear, man. I look at Leslie and I was like, we got to pack up right now. We got to go. So it's like cameras going in the bags, tripods are getting collapsed, and we just start sprinting up to the edge of the forest. We jump in the truck. And in some of the video, I mean, I'm like, and I'm still winded, breathing hard. And we end up getting up to this area where we could spot this moose that he saw off this logging road. Now, this is all Indian reservation area,
Mm-hmm.
native ground, First Nation ground, and they had logged a lot of it. And the logging trucks had put in a bunch of 2-tracks getting logs in and out the year before, which was convenient for us because we could kind of maneuver back in there. So we find the moose. He's about 175, 180 yards away. And the only thing between me and him is 4 foot deep of fresh powder snow.
Dude, I saw the pictures of that stuff and then on the video,
Yeah.
and it's stupid, the amount of snow.
Yeah. And I'm 5'10", and I'm completely layered up with 7 layers of clothes, and I have a bow. So I start thinking about it. I could try to stalk in. He sees me coming a mile away. Because it's white snow. I don't have white camo on,
Right.
And so that's not going to work. Well, maybe I can go to a different spot and I can wait him out. And then I would just simply die of hypothermia before he decided to move 10 hours later,
Right, right.
So it's not like our whitetails. When it's that cold, our whitetails have to move. They're used to that shit.
Yeah.
He's cool, just hunkered down. He probably made himself almost like a little igloo, you know what I mean, in that stuff. So I made a really rash decision and I went, hey, Leslie, do you have your Bergara B14 308 in the truck? And she's like, yeah. And I went, give it to me.
Hand her over.
I grabbed it and got into a position and fire in the hole. And it's the first time I have shot a rifle, at a big game animal. And God, man, 15 years, something like that. And in that moment, it was weird because I thought it would have been a bigger decision for me to make.
Mm-hmm.
And at the end of the day, the key points were ethically, that was the right play. For odds of success, that was the right play. The other options had very, very low odds. And let's also not forget, in 5 days, I am leaving Saskatchewan.
Yeah.
It's not like I'm at my lease down the road.
Right.
So those were the big decisions that went into my brain. And then the final decision was, it's still hunting. This is hunting. You know what I mean? I didn't shoot him over a bait pile which again, if it's legal in your state, fucking bait away.
More power to
you. But but that's the cards I was dealt at that time. So that's what I did. And yes, freaking great. Now in the video, you can see me approach the moose with my bow. And to explain that, Leslie had put 3 rounds into her rifle. She had shot a round at her whitetail on day 1. So there were still 2 rounds left. Her ammo was at the very bottom of her backpack. So after I fired 2 rounds into this moose, the first one hurt him. The second one, put him down. But it's still a 1,700 pound moose. Like I wasn't going to walk up weaponless,
Nothing in
and
hand.
there wasn't a rock or a stick big enough, so I grabbed my bow and that's what I took, because I was like, I'm out of ammo. And she's like, oh crap, like the rest of my rounds are in the bottom of my backpack. And so she's digging through her pack, and it's, it's a big Kafari pack, and you know what I
Right.
mean?
Right.
So I'm like, screw this. I grabbed my bow and I just took off running after this moose. So that's why I approached with the moose, or with my bow. But when I got to him, and I stopped at like 50 yards and observed him with binos to make
Well,
sure
yeah,
that the
dude, you
chest
don't.
cavity.
Yeah,
Yeah,
like you ain't trying to roll up on a 1,700 pound animal on chance that he might have one last hurrah in him. No, no, thank you.
exactly. Yeah, I don't want to be that guy. I don't want to be known as that
Yeah,
guy. Right?
you'd be on the news. It's like
Yeah, exactly.
Kentucky
That's not how
Rattler,
I want to make the news.
Kentucky Rattler gored by Saskatchewan moose.
Yeah, exactly. So I'm like, this like, if he does stand up and have, like you said, like a last hurrah charge in him, I lose every day of the week.
Yeah, yeah.
Every day of the week. There
Now,
is no chance of me.
so as a side note, I think the Kentucky Rattlers finishing wrestling move would need to be the moose track. Like
The
that's
moose track.
yeah,
Yeah.
that's the finishing
Yeah.
move right there.
I grab him by his leg and twist him up or something.
Yeah.
So yeah, so anyways, and then there was 5 of us. So we had myself, Leslie, we had the main owner, operator, outfitter, and then he has 2 Sherpas.
Mm-hmm.
So we had 5 adults out there breaking this moose down. It took us about 2.5 hours to get him caped out, and we didn't fully cape out. We just caped, up to the chin and
Mm-hmm.
or lower jaw, and that was it. But we quartered him out, ribs, everything. I mean, the only thing we left behind was basically just the spine and the guts. It's the only thing we left behind. And it still took 2.5 hours, and we were dragging out with sleds, making trips. Right. And I mean, I'm talking flat exhausted. That air is so thin, it's so cold, and you're just dragging these loads out. Like I said, it's 1,700 pounds. The only thing we left behind was maybe 200 pounds.
Right.
So it takes about 5 trips with this toboggan, dragging him out. We get in the truck. Now all of that frozen blood and ice is melting. So now we're all soaking wet, and you're exhausted, and you're in a warm truck. You're sweaty at this point. You know how that happens. And we all kind of look at each other, and we're like, holy shit. Like, that was the first time that it really set in what had just happened.
Right.
And I'm like, oh my God, like adrenaline dump. I just want to go to bed. Like, right. I really want to go to bed right now. So we start driving down the 2-track, and the outfitter, Curtis. So the owner of the outfitter is called BBD Saskatchewan. And Curtis he's like, oh, holy shit, look over there. And I look to my right, and I see these 3 moose cows just chilling, like they were watching us break down their boyfriend, And I'm like, oh, that's pretty cool, a bunch of cows. So then he puts it back in gear, and we start to round this corner of this 2-track. And then I hear him go, you gotta be fucking kidding me. And I look to my right, and there's another bull moose like 250 yards standing off the side of this field. So at this point, Leslie didn't have another tag. She was just kind of a one and done on this hunt. So I'm like speaking as her agent at this point, and I'm like, I look at him and I go, can she get another tag? Can she get a moose tag? And he's like, yeah, I have 1 moose tag left in the truck. And I turn to the back seat and I look at her, and I'm like, yes or no, shit or get off the pot. Do you want this moose or not? And she's like, yeah, I want it. So she bails out of the truck. She sits on her ass like Marine Corps style, and she whacks, throws around at this moose, drops it. And then we all were like, shit, we're going to have to do this all over again, another 2.5 hours.
Oh my God, dude.
So that's the walking up to her moose. She calls her husband, Troy. And I've told this story so many times, and I still think it's one of the funniest things in the world. She calls her husband, and she's on FaceTime, and she's like, Troy, I just shot a moose. And he's like, oh my God, babe, that's awesome. Like, congratulations. I'm so proud of you. That's super cool. And he's like, is John nearby? She's like, yeah, he's standing right here. And I'm like, yeah, Troy, what's up, man? I'm right here. And he's like, hey, do me a favor. Take her ammo. she's done. Like, because he's taking taxidermy bills.
Yeah.
So he's like, that's it. You're done. Take her ammo away. So, anyways, we got everything broke down. And I think we were both asleep by like 8 o'clock that night and slept like a solid 12 hours just out.
Dude, that's
So
crazy, man.
so that was Canada. Yeah. Super
Yeah.
dope.
Yes. I mean, it's I was pumped whenever I got the text message, dude. Like, and I couldn't believe just like how big it was. 'Cause I knew moose was one of those things for you that was like a bucket list. Like that was a
Oh,
bucket
yeah.
list. That was a bucket list animal
Yeah.
for you. You
Yeah.
know?
It is. Yeah.
And a lot of folks don't get to necessarily even, attempt their bucket list animal. A lot of people just
Right.
it remains their bucket list, right? And then if they do,
Yep.
it's like, if they get the species, then awesome, right?
Mhm.
But when
Yeah.
if they do, very rarely do they get like a giant. You know what I mean, so
Yeah,
to speak,
yeah.
right? And like you go
Yeah.
to Saskatchewan, you kill a hammer buck, which is just like
Yeah.
a beautiful Canadian buck, everything you would want
Yep.
in a Canadian buck,
Yep.
and
Mhm.
then you kill this moose, which is not just like yeah, I killed a Canadian moose. Like when you sent it to me, and I'm not a moose expert by any stretch of the imagination, right? But I know the difference
Yeah,
between
yeah.
like I've seen moose in Montana when I was hunting out there, and
Yep.
online or whatever, it's like I've seen like Yukon moose, and so you kind of get an idea of
Yeah.
like the size of like the different regions and stuff like that, And so I knew
Yep.
Canada has decent moose, but not like giant necessarily. And when I got that text of yours, dude, I was like, first thing I said when I looked at it, I was like, dude, that thing looks like it's a Yukon moose. I was like, that thing is stupid big. Like that thing was
Yeah.
ridiculously big. Like I don't know anything about moose, like I said, but man, I felt like that was a giant Canadian moose.
Yeah. Right. Right. Right.
And I'm assuming
Yeah.
so, right?
Yeah. Well, and that was it. Like, again, same way. Like, I'm thinking Alaska moose and, stuff like that, where they're like 65, 70 inches wide. And, of course, we all see a lot of video footage, the cinematic B roll, where these are not killable moose, they're park moose and stuff like that. So, I mean, they're just humongous. And so I didn't have a great barometer as to what this was. And even, the outfitters like, look, bro, like, I don't know if you realize what you've just done, but there's guys that have been chasing moose in Saskatchewan up here for 20, 30 years that have never even seen a moose this big, much less had an opportunity to kill one.
Right.
And you killed one technically morning one of your moose hunt.
Which is ridiculous.
Yeah. And, had I not forgotten my bino harness, the only reason he spotted that moose is because he had to bring me my bino harness on the second trip. And then he was driving back through. We would have sat in that blind. Now we were probably 500-600 yards away from where that moose was, but we would have sat in that blind. And there's a very good chance. There's like a 99% chance that moose was never going to walk towards us or within our visual. So, like I said, I never forget my shit, but the morning that I do, it actually results in that. So, I come home from that trip, drop everything off at the taxidermist, which, by the way, flying home with that stuff was so much painless than what I thought it was going to be. I pre-froze everything, put it in Rubbermaid totes. So I don't want to say pro tip because I'm not a pro. I've only done it one time. But what I did was, because it was so cold, I was able just to, get the cape and the horns and stuff like that and get everything into the horns. I couldn't fit into a Rubbermaid tote, but I went to a hardware store and I bought those little noodles and I lined the outside edge. I split the noodle in half and then lined the whole outside edge. And then I bought a roll of shrink wrap. Total investment $17 Canadian. You know what I mean?
Right.
And then and just wrapped and wrapped and wrapped. And I mean, I had the shrink wrap on there like 50 layers deep. You know what I mean? That was shipped as like basically one checked bag.
Right.
And then I had these two big Rubbermaid totes that had all of our whitetail hides and our whitetail, horns. They were inside the Rubbermaid tote. Like I said, it was -30. ain't going to get any more frozen,
Mm-hmm.
and shipped those two as checked bags. And of course, they were overweight. You know, they were both like 100 pounds, but it is what it is. But that's how I traveled back, and man, it was awesome. It went really really smooth. So I get home, and my wife and kids, we had a trip planned to go down to Florida to visit my mom. So we went down there for like 3 days. So I literally went from negative 33 to 90 degrees plus, you know? And I was like, man, I want to get sick or something, you know? But the first morning when I woke up in Florida, I walked outside and I literally thought I was going to have a heat stroke. My body was just not regulated, you know?
Right. Was not ready for
So
all that.
we do our Christmas vacay down there, had a good time, and I'm chomping at the bit. You know, I want to get back home because now I have a muzzleloader tag, you know, late season Iowa tag. And I had recently partnered up with CBA and committed that I was going to do a muzzleloader hunt, you know, to finish off the season. And there was a couple of good deer still running around on the lease, and I had a grizzly box blind set up that I really thought I could capitalize on this cut bean field. And third evening, I ended up shooting a 167 6.5 year old, and just a cherry on top of a season, you know. And I'm like, this is ridiculous. Like, it's insane, you know. And I really don't try to cherish and hold on to past seasons hunts, because it's a whole nother season.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, I'm like, holy shit, that's never going to happen again. Like, a season like that for me is probably never, ever, ever going to happen again. Chasing free range deer, you know, like that. So,
Right.
yeah, man, it was pretty epic, pretty awesome.
How do you were just talking about, like, you try not to look in the past and stuff like that. And that makes sense. Just knowing you and how you like to operate and stuff like that. But how do you top last year? Like, going into this year, knowing full well, like you had mentioned, it's like, man, I'll probably never do that again. Just like, cause I mean, just think about it. 2 in Iowa, right? One with a bow,
Mm-hmm.
one late season with a muzzleloader,
Yep.
giant Canadian moose, giant
Yep.
Canadian whitetail, hammer Texas buck.
Mm-hmm.
What am I missing? Anything else?
All in 60 days.
All in 60 days. Yeah. So,
Yeah.
like, what do you do for an encore?
Retire.
Sell all my shit.
Yeah. I retire. I write a book.
It's funny.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know, man. Like, it's just, it's crazy. Like I said, it was an awesome season. You know, I had one of my buddies that he was like, it wasn't an awesome season. It was just finally everything came together as it should have for you. Cause you know, you bust your ass, and you know, and I look back on past seasons, and I hate to be that coulda, woulda, shoulda, but I look back on past seasons like Tyson.
Mm-hmm.
I had my opportunity. I hit Tyson, but I hit him low. Um, I went to Missouri and just, you know, was there a bad week.
Mm-hmm.
Didn't have good weather, you know. So I can look back at past seasons and say, man, if I would have connected then, if I would have connected then, you know what I mean? Like, and then another buddy who likes to keep my ego in check, he was like, man, what a killer season. He's like, these last couple of years have kind of sucked for you. And I'm like, well, I killed the fifth largest black bear ever in Canada with a bow, and I did a single season archery grand slam in 30 days. Like, eat a dick. You know what I mean? I'm like, I was like, I wouldn't say that I've been sucking lately, you know?
Right.
But I don't know. So this year, man, I doubled down, Clint. Actually, ironically, the property that I shot my two Iowa whitetails on, I lost that lease.
Yeah.
Neighboring farmer, he didn't like other people killing his deer that he
Yeah.
had trail camera pictures of. So he made a stink for me, and I ended up losing that lease.
And that
So
place had mega giant potential too. Just like
oh
historically, you and I talked about that, offline, like
yeah,
some of the
yeah,
particulars about that'll remain private
yeah,
for obvious reasons. But
yeah.
yeah, there's there's stupid stuff that happens on that farm.
Yeah. Very, 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 very famous set of sheds, came off that property. And yeah, so this year I'm stuck. I'm back to my old original lease, the first lease that I ever had when I moved to Iowa. And I mean, I still have some public land, as an option as well. And I'm going to do a few scout sessions and put a few cameras and see what's up there. Um, I'm not going to say that I'm going to spend months and months and months scouting the public, but I am going to see what's out there. And this year, knowing that I lost that lease, I made a hard transition this year, and I went totally a different route. I mean, I'm still going to have my 2 Iowa tags, and I'll try to fill those Iowa whitetail tags, but I put in for Kansas. I landed a spot in Kentucky to go back velvet season, which, just the other day, we drew our Kansas tags, we got our emails on those. Colorado mule deer, Wyoming mule deer, going back to Saskatchewan. So it's kind of a mule deer season. You know what I mean?
It sounds like it, man. That'll be cool. Have you, I don't know if the years that I've known you that you've often gone out antelope hunting. Have you done mule deer in the past, or is this a first?
No, first time. Mm-hmm.
Okay. Nice.
So, and I thought, well, I'd be pretty pissed if I try to go after my first mule deer and I only have one opportunity and I got to wait a whole another year to do it again. So I'm like, screw it, man. Let's make 3 mule deer hunts. Hopefully I'll get lucky and get 1 out of 3,
Right. That's awesome, man. Yeah. I drew a Kansas tag as well. So that's in my plans for this year. And then I'll be headed to Idaho. I mean, I've already kind of, flights are booked, tags in hand. I'm now just kind of gathering all my gear and stuff like that, because I'm doing a lot of what you do, which is flying in somewhere. I don't often do that. A lot of times mine are drive to wherever I'm going, and you do tons of driving too, but you do take flight trips and stuff like that depending on where you're headed. So this is my first kind of fly-in hunt since, God, man, the last time I did a fly-in hunt was probably 2002. I think I was in Alaska, and that was a fly-in hunt. I haven't flown to hunt since then.
And it's tough because what you bring, that's what you got.
Dude, that's what I'm kind of scrambling with right now. Cause it's like, I need a good Western pack, and so I don't want to be taking just like a ton of crap. So I'm trying to figure out like, well, what size pack do I need that I can basically fit everything I need for the trip in this pack?
Yeah.
But I can also kind of smash it down to be able to use for a day pack while I'm there. Cause we're basically driving back a trailhead as far as we can make it. And then we're backcountry, just like camping for the week.
44 mag from Kafaru, I think would fit nicely into that offer, the best of both worlds.
Yeah.
That'd be one I'd at least take a look at, you know what I mean?
Right. So yeah, I'm pretty stoked on that. And then I'm fired up to be going back to Kansas. But I'd be lying if I didn't say I had like mixed feelings about it a little bit, because there was a little part of me that was like, man, I could really save some money on gas this year if I just didn't draw that hunt. You know what I mean? Like after the fact, I put in for the tag, gas prices go way up. And I was just kind of like, man, I wouldn't be super pissed if I didn't draw that this year. And I just stuck around closer to home or whatever. But
dude, trust me, I'm going to have to drive to Colorado, and then I'm going to drive to Wyoming. Those are my 2 big drives. But then, oh shit, I totally forgot. I'm also going to Africa this year.
I was going to say, I thought you were planning to go to Africa. Yeah. How do you let that out?
I'm like, what the heck, man?
Cool.
So, I mean, flights to Africa for me, camera guy. Then you've got, I'm going to fly out to the Park City TAC event in July. And then, of course, I've got flights, to Saskatchewan. I'm like, man, like, I don't want to make this a political podcast, but and Joe Biden sucks. You know what I mean?
Someone hook a brother up with some like gas tickets or something. Like,
yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. I mean, that whole like stipend, that we all got. I've already spent that and 3 times that amount in fuel already this year. Well, to put it in terms, because Primal Divide is a business, you know what I mean? so I have everything budgeted for the year.
Yep.
You get X number of dollars that come in from partners, and you try to provide the most hunts and the most usable content for them and stuff. Obviously, I want to do as well,
Right.
but you try to negotiate all that and fit it all into the budget. And then at the end of the day, hopefully, I can still make a mortgage payment. And what my fuel budget was for this year, I've already hit it. And we're what, June 13th?
Yeah.
Yeah, June 13th. And as of 4 days ago, I hit my fuel budget for the year.
That's crazy.
I'm
man.
like, dude, and I haven't even started my big trips.
Yeah, this is just normal run of the mill, normal stuff.
This is going to some 3D shoots, just, going to the lease, doing some stuff, a couple of small turkey hunts, you know what I mean? Like, I'm like, dude, this is not cool.
Yeah, well, that's why I ended up flying.
It's stressful.
Yeah, that's why I ended up flying to Idaho, was just because when I started breaking it down, I was like, man, I can get a flight, for, I think my flight all in was like $600 roughly, something like that for a round trip.
That's good, man. Yeah, book flights now.
Yeah,
they're not listening. If you've got Western hunts or late fall hunts, I know it sucks to book it all at one time, but the shit ain't gonna get no cheaper.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. And I kind of I screwed the pooch a little bit, because whenever I drew but when I got my Idaho tag, I should have just bought the flight then, because it was I want to say my round trip at that point was like $450. I ended up having to spend like almost an extra $200 just because of what's going on with like fuel prices and stuff like that. But
my Africa flight went up about $100 in a week.
Yeah.
I started on a Monday looking at prices, and then by the time I booked, like on a Saturday or the following Monday, I think it was, Expedia had already gone up, and then they popped up a tab and they're like, good job booking this flight, because this flight is going up like $57 tomorrow. And I'm like, what the piss, man?
I know, dude. Yeah. Yeah. It's great. So what are you chasing in Africa? What's the species?
So a kudu, another bucket list animal. Love kudus, man. They're just so badass. So kudu number one, and an oryx. I just like the horns on the oryx. And then an impala, because I'm an OG with a 63 Impala tattooed on my back already. So, very, very brief story. I have a 63 Impala Super Sport tattooed on my back, and it's the full width of my back. And my dad and I didn't do a whole lot of stuff together growing up, but we restored a 63 Impala together. So that was something that we did together. And so, yeah, I went ahead and got one tattooed on my back. And it's pretty funny. If I'm ever shirtless, you get some old timer. It's like, is that a 63 Impala? Like, yes, sir, it is. And he's like, okay, not really normal seeing a guy your age with a 63 Impala, or hell, for that matter, anybody having a 63 Impala tattooed on them. But yeah, so I'm like, screw it, man. I want to shoot an Impala. Right. So, and then get this shit. You and I haven't even talked about this. So, on Instagram, there's always those like crazy ass giveaways and like tag a buddy and you can win like a lifesaver or a fucking pack of gummy bears or whatever.
Right.
I entered one of those things, and I just won a fucking Africa hunt for 2023.
Are you serious?
Dead serious. All I got to do is pay the airfare. It's for a warthog, a wildebeest, and I don't know, something else. I have to go back and reread it.
Dude, that's crazy. So 2 years in a row, you're going to end up going to Africa.
Yeah. And it's funny because even the outfitter that I booked my original hunt with this year, he's like, oh, you just wait till you come to Africa. You're going to be booking a hunt with me every single year. And I'm like, dude, it's a 15-hour flight out of Atlanta each way. I can tell you right now, I'm a one and done.
Right.
And no, apparently I'm going back.
Right.
So
that's awesome, dude. Dude.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Your house, that wall is going to be full of all kinds of weird stuff.
Oh, dude, my wife's going to say, so I'm so dead.
Yeah.
Like, she's so going to kill me.
Man, it's like you're going to have to put another wing on the house just to fit all the Africa mounts in there.
Dude, Now that would be champagne problems right there. I'm
That
going to
would
build
be
an extension for a trophy room.
exactly. Yeah. When you broach that topic, just make sure I'm out to visit because I want to watch that. I want to see that go down.
Dude, she will take a shoe off and throw it at me. You know what I
Oh,
mean?
oh yeah, yeah. Just for good measure, I might pick it up, give it back, so I can just watch her throw it again.
I
You know what
just
I mean?
throw it again.
You need to throw that one
I'll
twice,
rig up some GoPros because that would be pretty funny.
right?
I tell you, I mean, the antelope and the whitetail, like she doesn't get too bent out of shape about. The bear, she wasn't a big fan of because that's like her animal.
Mhm.
Like to me, like mountain lions scare the shit out of me, right?
Right.
Bears, I mean, grizzlies obviously are scary, but black bears, I wouldn't say that like, I'm afraid of them. But the turkeys, when I got the Grand Slam turkeys all dead mount and they're just like they're hanging from 1 foot on the wall. Yeah, she does not like those. So anybody's thinking about doing a dead mount, you might want to actually talk about that with your spouse or significant other before you
Right.
just bring one of those in the house.
Right. What
Yeah.
about the moose, man? When you getting that back?
So I Old Barn Taxidermy went ahead and did both of my Iowa whitetails for me. And that way I could take them to the Iowa Deer Classic back in March because I
Mhm.
had a Primal Divide booth there. So that was cool that they rushed those. They're getting ready to start on the Texas whitetail. And then they have the Saskatchewan whitetail and the moose. So I'm hoping July,
Mhm.
August, I might get those back. So, but the moose, man, like
Where are you
doing
gonna
a
hang
shoulder
that
mount
thing,
on
dude?
that guy.
Yeah, where are you gonna hang that?
Well, yeah. So, in the family room, the far wall
Yeah.
opposite of how you enter the family room,
Yep.
it's going to go on that far wall pretty
Okay.
high. So I'm going to have to get some scaffolding, rent some scaffolding and stuff so I can get it up there because we'll probably mount it about 16 foot off the ground or so.
Right. Yeah.
And it's heavy.
I was gonna
It's
say,
like
dude.
really, I mean, just the horns are heavy. I can't imagine what the head and the shoulder's going to be.
Yeah, you're gonna have to make sure you're not like don't have a couch underneath that, something like that.
Oh, well, and that's what's funny. There is. And I'm like, what if that thing comes off the wall? So when I was talking to Sam from Old Barn, I said, does like this thing surely grabs at least two studs? And he goes, yeah, there's like a special bracket that goes in place to make sure that this thing doesn't come off the wall. Thank God, because it'd kill somebody,
Yeah, for sure,
or at
man.
least mess them up pretty bad.
Right.
So I won't sit underneath it. I can tell you
Right.
that.
Someone that we'll call that seat the Rattler seat. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah. That's a sit at your own risk right there.
Right. Maybe
Death by moose.
put a little sign up, like a little plaque, like on the wall, like next to the seat. Like, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, dude, that's
Yeah.
hilarious.
But I did not draw my Arizona up tag this year.
Okay.
And I was really hoping for that. So I've got a preference point there. And it sounds like the unit that I'm trying to draw in, which means I'll have like an 89% chance next year. So
Right.
not guaranteed, but pretty good chance next year.
Yeah.
And I think what happened there in that situation was there for a little while, Arizona offered that opportunity where you could go online and take their hunter safety class for a bonus point.
Mm-hmm.
Well, everybody fucking did it during COVID. Nobody was hunting.
Yeah.
So instead of drawing with 1 point, now it's going to take drawing in 2 points because basically everybody got a point.
Yeah. Yeah.
Except my dumb ass. I didn't do it.
Right. There you go. I was just going to ask you, what do you, just out of curiosity, like, what do you think, how much do you think just the state of things with like the prices of things, inflation, all that stuff, how much do you think it's going to impact people buying points this year, right? Not hunting, and then start to have point creep yet again because then people in like a year or two are going to start to cash in those points they just picked up because they weren't willing to travel.
100% because Iowa is not 4 points anymore. It's getting closer to 5.
Is it?
And that has come from that. You know what I mean? From point creep. I guarantee you, with fuel prices, this year will be a record year for people selling their tags back. Because Idaho offers that.
Yeah.
There's maybe another state out west that offers that, but I guarantee this is a record year for that. Now, the only reason I don't think it's going to be across the board, it'll be the biggest year ever. I'm very confident of that. But the reason why I don't think it's going to be like double record breaking year is just on the fact of, and this is a theory that I've proven a couple of times in a couple of marketing sessions, is trying to convince people that if it's cool or if you want it, you'll do it.
Mm-hmm.
And if anybody lives in a modular home that maybe was delivered on wheels, I'm not making fun of you. I made a point of people that say, take me to a trailer park and I'll show you $80,000 Chevys lifted on wheels with off-road tires. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
was that the best financial decision? Maybe not, but if it's cool enough, they'll do it.
Right.
So there, it's gonna make a huge impact. But I mean, more so even on the rest of the industry side, if you got a guy that's now paying $5.50 for gas, maybe he won't buy a new bow this year. He might just hold on to that bow one more year. So it in my world, financially, it is concerning because if Crispy's not selling as many boots and Hoyt's not selling as many bows, and you know what I mean, like there's a chance they might not want to pay me as much next year if they don't have it, because we all know when there's a budget cut, marketing's the first damn thing that gets cut.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. No, I kind of agree with you, man. I think it's interesting because a lot of those Western tags are kind of determined prior to when we really started seeing like the gas prices like really ramp
exactly
up. I think everyone was kind of feeling it, going like, oh, this kind of sucks, but like gas prices are higher, but it's not like it is now. And then I think all of a sudden,
yep,
people had their tags, secured, they got their lottery draws and stuff like that, or they had already put in, maybe they didn't draw yet, but they had already submitted, paid for them, whatever the case is, and just waiting to hear whether or not they got them or not. And then kind of like me to a degree, where it's like I had a little bit of buyer's remorse. I don't want to look, I don't need a pity party. I'm getting to go hunt Kansas and I'm going to have a great time. I'm going to love it. So it's, don't feel bad for me, but
yeah, right. Again, champagne problems.
Right. But, just we're normal people like everybody else that have jobs, whether it's what I do for a living or, what you do for a living as a photographer and stuff.
Yep.
So we still have budgets that we have to kind of adhere to and money that we kind of set aside to spend. And to your earlier point, it's like, I wasn't really anticipating paying that much to get to where I was planning to go. You know what I mean? And it just makes you kind of pause for a second. And I think the flip side of it might be, you may see a little less further travel. So for example, going to Kansas, because I'm going to hunt all walk-in in public, I might run into less pressure than I've run into in last year, just because the people who are going to be coming there probably aren't going to be as many people from PA, Michigan, Ohio. It's probably going to be people who are a little closer to Kansas, and you start to kind of carve out, or cut away some of those folks who are traveling a further distance.
Yeah, agreed. Yeah, it's gonna make things different. And I know that Wyoming cut a lot of their mule deer tags. They cut a lot of their antelope tags this year that they're not going to be giving out. So, I wonder again, were some of those people that would have drawn, would they have sold their tags back, or it is very interesting to see how it's all going to shake out. So we'll see. I don't know for sure if I got my Wyoming mule deer tag or not. I did put in for that special tag, so it's supposed to double your chances, but it's also double the money.
Right.
Again, I don't know that if I would have done that had I known that fuel prices were going to continue to go up. So and that's the unfortunate part. And for people listening, like, if you've never done the Western thing, and if you're doing multiple Western things, like you said, I'm not looking, no pity party for John. I get to hunt for a living, and I'm very blessed that I can do that. But it's not all rainbows all the time
Mm-hmm.
because, when I put out my media kit back in January, I committed to these hunts and my partners signed on to endorse and sponsor these hunts. They don't give two shits if the price of gas tripled or if the flights tripled and my loaf of bread doubled. Like that, it doesn't matter to them. I committed to something in January, so come hell or high water, I got to make it happen, or it's my ass.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
They have deliverables that you're accountable for, regardless of what changes between then and or now and then,
yeah,
or or January and whenever the hunts have to take place or whatever the case is.
yep. I mean, I had a camera lens that went down recently, and that was $1,000 just for the repair.
Yeah.
And it was a freak thing. And I'm like, well, there's $1,000 I didn't expect to spend. And
Right.
so there's been things that happen that pop up all the time. And I'm like, oh man,
Mm-hmm.
but, and that's why I kind of shaved my turkey season down a little bit this year.
Yep.
Was just because I knew that the fall was going to be an expensive season already.
Yep.
Wasn't thinking fuel prices. I was just thinking it was going to be expensive, flights and
Just
fuel, but
right.
we'll adapt. I mean, there's OnlyFans.
Mm-hmm.
I've
Yeah.
been learning how to twerk a little bit on the side.
Yeah. You could
I'm getting okay with it.
yeah. You could go full Mike Honcho and do a full spread and play girl.
I mean, somebody will buy feet pics. I figure at the end of the day,
There's all kinds out there. There's all kinds of weird people.
you just got to hustle, adapt, and overcome. You
That's
know what
right.
I mean? If there's a will, there's a way. There's a sucker born every day that will buy OnlyFans videos.
It's $20 a toe or $100 for a foot. You know what I'm saying? Like,
dude, I'm telling you, man, throw in a $5 tip. I'll look at them.
oh
You know
yeah,
what I mean?
exactly. So where are you?
So,
What's your plans for Kansas, man? Are you like what part of? You don't have to tell me where you're going because I don't want to let the cat out of the bag.
It's okay. It's pretty much dead center. Kind of a little more east central.
Mm-hmm.
But as far as north to south, it's pretty much right in the dead center, and be hunting in that area. Same people, my same buddy Nate, that I hunted with a couple of years ago in Kansas. So he's got a bunch of leases out there, and he's been gracious enough to invite me to come back. He was actually mad at me that I didn't put in last year, and I was like, well, I wasn't like going to invite myself, and I didn't want to overstay my welcome. And he's like, no, dude, once you're invited, you're invited. I'll tell you if you're not invited, So I'm like, damn it, I would have put in last year. So anyway,
Right.
So I put in this year, and lucky enough to draw again. It's such a good time, hunting with him. It's almost like I'm hunting one of my own leases. You know what I mean? Like, so his family, he's got a great, great family. His kids are funny as hell, and his wife, she's funny as hell. So it's pretty cool. They let me crash in the basement. Yeah, pretty dope.
You have some prospects on the Iowa farm. You got any hanger overs from last year that you're chomping at the bit to see if they return?
There was a couple of 2 and 3 year olds last year. Because even though I didn't hunt it, I still ran cameras on it all year. And so technically it got zero hunting pressure at all last year. I never went there, never sat it once.
Wow.
But ran cameras, throughout the year. And there was one really, really good deer. Rumored is he got killed. But that doesn't make me horribly mad. If there's a big buck in the area and he's the only big buck and then he got killed, I like those odds because that means there's a chance another big buck's going to take his bedroom, move into that area. So that doesn't bother me too much. I know a lot of guys, they get all dejected, and I'm like, no. If it was a big buck bedding area for one guy, it ain't going to stay vacant long.
Right. There's a reason why an old weary buck is using that spot just in general. So eventually there'll be another take its place.
Exactly. So yeah, there was a couple of decent bucks that will become, 3s and 4s this year. And hopefully there's another big one that moves in. And traditionally on that property, anytime it's a corn year on that farm, it's a better year.
Okay.
I've seen the better quality of deer during corn year. So this is a corn year, and I'm actually planting some corn myself in my plot. this year to kind of help out with that a little bit. And of course, I'll leave mine standing, and the farmer, he'll do his normal, row crop practices and stuff. But
right.
So we'll see what happens. I've got a bunch of cameras soaking right now. And, I switched over to Stealth Cam this year, and I've got a bunch of their cameras out there running right now. And we'll see what we got,
Nice, man. Well, I'm looking forward to trying to get back out to Iowa. I'm bummed to hear that it's getting closer to 5 points, because I would be maybe a year away from being able to draw and come back out and pay you a visit, but it looks like it might have to be 2 years, unfortunately.
Well, and I think what it is it's kind of like a 65% chance on 4 points.
Yeah.
Maybe even 70%. Whereas before it was like 95% on 4 points.
Yeah.
So it hasn't fully gone to a new point, but it's getting there.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Because I think still next year, I think what I'll do is I'll probably buy the tag anyway, and just if I get it, then awesome, then I'm coming. If not, then I'll figure out an over the counter state somewhere.
Dude, freaking pick up a muzzleloader, bro.
I know, dude.
Come on over. The water's warm.
The water's warm.
It's I'm telling you, it's kind of cool.
Right.
I mean, this was I talk about it like I'm a big muzzleloader hunter. It's the first time I've muzzleloader hunted in like 18 years or something,
Right.
But it's kind of dope because it's colder than hell, and you're just, sitting on an open field. You can see a ton of stuff. It's usually different than our style of bow hunting.
Right.
And it's kind of cool, man.
All right.
You might like it a little bit.
You might be selling me on this. You supply the muzzle loader, and I'll one of these years,
got you.
One of these years I'll come out and we'll get the old smoke pole fired up.
Yeah. It's and modern day muzzle loaders pretty much feels like a rifle,
Right. Yeah.
I mean, I'm sighted in at 200 yards.
Right.
It's
and you're good to go. Yeah. Well, sweet, man. Well, dude, it was good catching up with you, brother. It's been way too long since we've had a chance to do this. Yeah. Before you jump out of here, let folks know where they can find all of Johnny Utah's goings-ons.
Yes, man. Johnny.utah.hunt on the gram. And you've got 2 options for Primal Divide. Obviously, social media outlets, Facebook, Instagram. But on the video side of things, if you are a Waypoint subscriber, or if you have Sling TV or Pluto TV, it is a native channel on there. And the time slot that I've been given is Saturdays at 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. Or you could just go to YouTube and you can watch Primal Divide episodes right there.
Awesome. Everyone should go check out the videos. They're dope, especially the you got to check out if you don't check out anything but one, check out the Canada moose hunt. You won't
Yeah, no, there's 4. I mean, there's 2 whitetails and 2 moose get killed in 14 minutes. Like, it's pretty banger.
yeah, pretty banger. All right, brother, man, you be good, dude. Thanks for coming on, and let's catch up again soon.
Hell yeah. Thanks, man.
All right, folks, that is a wrap for today's show. I'd like to thank all of you for listening. If you haven't yet, please head over to iTunes and leave us a 5-star rating, and be sure to subscribe to the podcast. And while you're at it, head over to YouTube and give us a sub there as well. I'd be super appreciative if you do those couple things for me. And before I shut this thing down, I need to give a big shout out to our partners who continue to help us make this podcast possible. Tethered, Spartan Forge, Exodus, and Skull Brew Coffee Company. And until next time, we'll see y'all.